This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, we're in the heart of winter, and I'm based in Colorado, but my guest today is not in Colorado. He is on the East Coast, so who knows what the weather is doing and the weather gods have up for us. But here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to have a hot show because January and February is really one of the most optimal times for authors, publishers to be thinking about going to print. And the AuthorU-Your Guide to Book Publishing is thrilled to add to our sponsoring family, King Printing. And with us today will be Tom Campbell, who is Sales Vice President of Publishing for King, based out of Massachusetts. And I love actually the customer service that King does. Personally, my book, AuthorU, creating and building your author and book platforms, was printed by them. And I was thrilled with the color, because it's color throughout that they did. But what I also loved is Tom personally delivered books to a conference I was speaking at, because we were to the wire. He made sure he personally drove them. I was in Massachusetts, so, that was good. But made sure I had them while I was there. So, hand delivery, what more could one want, right, Tom?
That's right, Judith. And I think the other experience I walked away with from that show was how well you travel.
Yeah, I don't get beat up.
No, you don't. But we went to the airport. You had all kinds of things with wheels that when I took you to the airport, you get out, and I was astonished that so much from a show could pack up and go so quickly. So.
Oh yeah. You learn those tricks, and it's even, the tricks of the trade. Like, I'm getting ready. I'm very excited because we have coming up our Publishing at Sea conference with 40 authors who we are taking out into the ocean for a week to do a publishing university, so to speak. And, I've already, someone says, well, how long does it take you to pack? And I said, no more than 20 minutes. You mean like for a whole thing? I said, no more than 20 minutes. And you do learn that there are things you don't need. There are things you always need. So that's easy. But you learn tricks.
Well, thanks for having me on today. And by the way, I understand it's tremendously windy there.
Yes,
and
it has been. Yeah.
Winter has finally arrived here. So, we're down around 24 degrees. So a little bit of snow on the ground. So as compared to Christmas when it was 70. So winter is here, but book printing and authors calling and many of the things that you and I have done over the years continue to go on strong, and the business continues to grow. And with your assistance, our business has grown.
And
and we thank you very much for that, and for your many endorsements over the years, going all the way back to previous organizations that you ran and helped make successful. So.
Well, thank you. And I have to say for King Printing, which we don't have our official commercial up for them, but for all of our listeners, what I really love about King is if I know that if I have a fast job I need to do, they are one of the first go-to people I hit. And I just say, can you get me a book in X amount of days? And I will know within a few minutes if they can do it or not. Yeah. So that's a good deal.
That's a good deal. That's a good deal.
So, Tom, let's talk about printing, because one of the things that you say often when I've spoken with you is that all printers are not created equal. So let's jump into that. Where's the division come from?
Well, the division really comes from the fact that of the book printers that are left, really, in the United States, and every year a few of them drop off, and so there's roughly about 40 book printers, truly, that make their living printing books for customers, and they all have different equipment, and they all have different run lengths. And they, unfortunately, in today's economy, they all have different financial health. And so many of the printers that are here today with equipment that is dated are probably not going to be around for a long period of time. And I'm speaking specifically offset printers. The world is moving quickly towards high-speed digital inkjet, which is what we printed your book on, and managing the quantities of books that you want to print. And as you and I have always talked, you don't want to print more books than you can sell. You can always reorder. But you and I have met so many people over the years that say, I've got a garage full of books. And, so today what you really want to do is in your plan is manage what you want to print. And so those book printers that are really focused on offset and high run are probably not going to be able to take care of the customers that want runs of 500 to 1,000 and up to 1,500, 2,000. They're geared more to 5,000, 10,000 kind of runs. And so they're just not going to be competitive. The second thing is that it's hard to find a book printer who offers all the services, and that is they do softcover, they do hardcover, and then they do mechanical binding, meaning coil books. And they do it all in one place. There are a lot of book printers that have softcover printing capability but don't have case bind capability. And for that, they've got to sub it out to somebody, a bindery. So now your job has been moved into another organization. And, once something moves out of your control, the challenges of timing, quality, and responsibility tend to become interesting when there's a problem. And, you and I have known over the years, there are going to be challenges some days in printing. It's still a manufacturing. You're manufacturing a custom item for somebody, and there's a lot of hands in the process. So, sometimes things problems can be created, and as you and I have had a couple of those, what's key is going back and making it right. And so, if the job has been split up in a couple of different places, that's going to be an interesting negotiation.
It is, and I have to say, this is a kudos to you. We had a book that you and I did. It was a children's book a year or so ago, and something happened to one of your machines. I don't know what it is, but what I really appreciated, which I could relay to my author, is that there was a hiccup, and the hiccup was that I was going to have to go to plan B, which was for the fuller run, because we were looking for 1,000 or 2,000 books, that we needed a fuller run. And what you said is, here's what, and you also were aware that we had a commitment for an event that we needed at least 100 for pronto. Mm-hmm. And you said that we will get these done by hand pronto, so you have them. But plan B, until we get this, whatever the big machine was that was involved in the hiccup, fixed, you need to do that. And that's a home run for me, because in most cases, especially, Tom, if most authors aren't aware when something gets subbed out. They don't understand that a lot of times things are sent out for other parts of the job. They always think it's underneath the same roof.
That's correct.
So if there is that hiccup, and especially if the hiccup's in another plant that your contractor can't control, that it just really compounds it. And what I was able to do, we were able to meet all our commitments, but most likely I think that I probably wouldn't have been communicated with as quickly as you did with me, so we could go into our plan B.
Yeah, and I think, you and I have talked over the years, is that depending upon, and let's talk about, the customer, your end customer, my end customer, I've got two customers. I've got you and I've got them, generally. So I'm actually more afraid of them than I am of you sometimes. But
oh, you shouldn't be.
But when picking a printer too, you have to, it's like going to a restaurant sometimes. There are people that can go into a restaurant like an Italian restaurant, and they may not be familiar with what's on the menu. It may be in Italian, who knows? And so the customer, the people in that restaurant have to realize that they've got kind of a newbie involved, maybe somebody that doesn't quite know what they're doing, and they're helpful. And many of your customers, as we've done this over the years, are first-timers. And, both of us have talked to these people, these authors, and we've talked about expectations, because sometimes their expectations are fairly lofty, and you have to, get to a conversation where, it's a book, it's a product, and so there are some of the other people that are out there, and as you know, we have a tremendous staff of highly qualified people that are willing to talk to people and spend time talking to them. And, that's very important from a customer service side, is that you understand the needs and you can communicate expectations in a manner that, makes people feel good about what they're doing. And they may have some expectations that are a little lofty, but, you can talk them off the bridge and explain to them the reality of book printing. And that's very important.
Well, I think it's not important. It's critical and it's essential. Yeah. So, here's what I want to do, because we're getting ready to kiss our first break. But what I'd like you to do, Tom, when we come back, is let's get into some of these essential steps in this process. And I would love to have you focus on what are the questions you wish your authors and early new publishers would ask that they never do.
Okay.
This is AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. I'm Judith Briles, and my guest today is Tom Campbell with King Printing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Give your book the best shot at getting buzz before it's even released. JKS Communications has been leading the book publicity industry for more than a decade. From producing some of the earliest book trailers to recently creating what Shelf Awareness calls the world's longest book tour, our team of publicists work tirelessly, smart, and with the goal of getting you the best attention possible. Our family of publicists come from journalism and publishing backgrounds with great experience and a passion for books. And our family of authors all across the globe are supportive of one another. We read your book and talk to you to understand your goals and lifestyle before sending you a proposal. We only represent books and authors that we believe in. Let's get going. Go online at jkscommunications.com.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has possessed pizzazz, punch, and panache. AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, we're talking printing. Tom Campbell is my guest. King Printing is our featured printer today and one of the sponsors of our program on a weekly basis. And one of the things as we went into break, I wanted Tom to come back and really address a couple of things I think is really important. One are, what are the critical steps that an author publisher should be doing before they present files so that they're in the right shape? And for me, I just work with all the right designers that's their job and they're supposed to do that. So I'm going to put that on the table. I am clueless to the actual creation of the files. I hire people to do that. Secondly, which I think maybe should be an essential step, but the second thing is that I asked Tom if he would kind of dive into some of the questions he wished people would ask and they don't. So, Tom, what do you want to take first?
I think the critical questions that we get into with people is, when they have, many authors have an idea about their book, and they have a lot of ideas about the book, and many of these ideas are, while they're good. There's a difference between coming up with an idea to make your book totally different than all the other books on the rack so that you can distinguish yourself, and then reality of the situation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people come to us and they'll say, they want a book that's going to have this kind of trim size. They want books that are going to have all kinds of different cuts in them, and by that I mean maybe some thumb cuts and things, just all specialized kind of stuff. And it may be a children's book, and they only want 100 copies, and they want to start off small, and it's too big. And so what I do is I talk to the authors and I say, this is really not going to be practical, and it's not going to be cost effective, and so you need to go back and take a look. And an old friend, unfortunately, who has passed away, that Dan Pointer, has given over the years probably some of the best advice. Go into the bookstore or go look amongst your books and find a book that you like, and use that as a model or a template for deciding what you want your book to look like. And that's always been practical because as you know, when you print a book and you actually, maybe you get into a bookstore, or maybe you're going to go in a rack, or maybe, an indie bookstore that you're familiar with is going to take the books. So many of the indie bookstores that I visit and talk to all tell me the same thing. Don't make this book any different than anything else, because our shelf space is just not going to accommodate it. And, it's all about shelf space in the bookstores. So, I love the ideas and concepts that people come up with, but I push back very heavily that you've got to go back and you've got to be practical, and you've got to, stay within the standard sizes, 8.5 by 11, 7 by 10, 6 by 9, 5.5, 8.5. In between is kind of okay, but, at the end of the day, the size of the book is not going to distinguish you from anybody else. The cover may get some attention, but as you well know, it's all about content, and focus on your content, because that's where, and you and I both know, we've got an author right now who's done a book called The Iodine Crisis. You and I never figured that, Miss Farrell was going to do the number of books that she did, and you and I both know it's on its way to 6 figures. So,
it's amazing what Lynn Farrell has done. I mean, it's a unique book. Number one, she's got the right title. And, I was honored to be the book shepherd to this book. And she's got the right title that, and for our listeners, we're not talking about 1 or 2 reprints. We're talking about many, many, many reprints. Yep. And it turns out, if you put iodine out there in books, her book will pop out. I mean, it has a heavy emphasis towards breast cancer, which was what brought her to that. But there really is zero to compete with it. So, she's in a niche. She followed it, what she knew about. And I'll tell you, has she aggressively gone out with bookstores? No, she hasn't.
No.
The primary seller is Amazon, and what comes from her website. That is it. But she goes back at mega thousands at a crack in printing them.
And, the thing about her book, and if you recall, it's a standard 6 by 9 book. It's on a 60-pound white offset. It's got a matte cover. It's got a cool cover. But, the word has gotten out on this book that amongst women, which, as you know, women drive the success and failure of books. It's a must-read. And so... many of the people come along, and by the way, the other parts of this whole sizing and practicality of books is that, when you do short-run books, and, even 1,000 is considered a short run, you got to work within, the standards of the industry. So coming out with something that is a little bit different is just really, it's not going to buy you anything. It's going to cost you more money than you really want. And, I would spend that money on the marketing side and promoting your book versus, putting into the cost of the book.
But let me talk of this on the number crunching, Tom, because when I go out for bids, I may start as low as 500 books, but I'll go for 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, sometimes 3,000. I never print, rarely over 3,000. Lynn is doing more than that because of what she's moving, but. When I look at a book, and you mentioned the matte cover, I was insistent that she put a matte cover on that book. Insistent, because number one, women were the primary reader. I know that the sensual feel that a matte can create, and we have to think when we write, when we speak, we have to incorporate some of those senses. And in the matte has a delicious touch to it, a sensual touch. So I knew that was right. And I will tell you, my preference is depending upon the size of the book, how many words are in the book, and what genre that book's in. but I'm really sticking with pretty much 5x8 or 5.5 by 8.5, depending upon the breadth of the book. And that seems to go really well. It fits well with people like and take. And I've got small books too that people like. If they're tiny books, short books, I'll go to the smaller size. But you don't do oddball stuff. Don't go oddball on things. And I think that's what you're saying here.
Yeah, and when you stick with standard sizes, the other thing that beyond, let's just go beyond printing a book. You take a look at the logistics. You have standard size cartons, okay? You want to be able to put these books, as many books in a carton as is healthy for you to pick up. And so, if you have the opportunity, and most of the warehouses and distribution centers, have standards about cartoning. And again, they get very strange when you start shipping books in a carton that weighs more than 35 pounds. Or, can't have a standard pack of, 24, 36. So, keeping the standard sizes for your book is key, because it drives so many different things. Even if you're going to mail these books out to people and you're going to use Uline, envelopes, they have standard sizes that'll take the books. If you go with something strange, you're going to find yourself in trouble. So, it's not just the book itself, but it's all the logistical pieces that flow after you've got your book, and now you're starting to ship things to people. You want to be able to use standard stuff.
So let me ask you this, Tom. If you, let's say, let's say I'm not muscle bound, although I'm used to hauling around boxes all over the place. But let's just say that I wasn't used to lifting up 50 pounds, which I easily do. Let's say that you want to keep it down. Can you say to a printer that what are my options to keep my weight, in the 25-pound range, and they can come up and give you that? Would that work?
Yeah, I mean, you can come up with standards. Some of the warehouses that we ship into that you and I have known over the years, they have standards. You go online, and they'll tell you what their packing standards are and their label standards.
All right.
And so, that's the way you need to do it.
That's terrific. All right. We're going to be right back with much more printy essentials and ahas. This is AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, today is all about printing. So some of the questions, and I think one of the ones that I have to admit I don't think to ask. But it would be easier to have a box that weighs less than 40 pounds. So if I can ask for always boxes to be 30 pounds, they're really, some of those days I am more tired, and they're easier to lug around in that. And I know that when we were really traveling aggressively with our books, when I was on the road, I was kind of like my own traveling road show when I was speaking at so many conferences, is that we could, because of my mileage with United, that John and I, between the two of us, we could easily carry four bags weighing up to 70 pounds each. So we always went to work on United Airlines. And I know that and we traveled in 50-pound, we double boxed them. We unboxed usually from the shipper, because we double box to protect them a little bit more, the way the baggage smashers can sometimes treat things. And we always did 50 pounds, but I knew that I could carry easily $1,200 in retail in any one box. Easily. Yeah. So, and we look at that. Hey, Tom, let me ask you a question about hardback. The buzz is out that fewer and fewer hardback books are selling. What's your experience?
Well, if you take a look at the numbers of books for 2015, the quantity of books 2015 versus 2014, the quantity of printed books has actually increased.
Oh, no, there's no question. And book sales were up another 2.5% last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, from what is happening is that more and more people are taking advantage of split run printing. So that meaning the text is common between the books, and they'll do 500 hardcover books and 1,000 softcover books to address different markets, because in some cases the hardcovers sell more, particularly in the professional market, or one of the new, as you know, one of the new markets today is now gift stores. And so books are still great gifts to give. Softcover, not so much. Hardcover, absolutely. So, more and more authors are doing split runs and then channeling the books into different markets and just taking advantage, because, you're really, from my standpoint, we're printing 1,500 books. It just becomes an option whether you want to bind them softcover or hardcover. So,
well, you mentioned let's talk about the binding. So, what's the differences? I mean, soft color. We've got glue. We've got glue in most of them anyway. So, if you'll talk a little bit about the binding differences between the two, and what's the time taken with that?
Well, there's some really good news on that, and it kind of goes back to being, all-in-one book printer as we are. The new binding techniques and the new equipment that exists today, we use what's called PUR, and it's called polyurethane resin binding. And just like the polyurethane on your floor, it's a material that when you apply it, when you take the grind off the bind, the back of the book block, it actually bonds with the paper fibers and creates, an extremely strong, better than hot melt glue bind. It's also a very flexible binding. It's got to sit for 24 hours so that it sets. But when you create that book block, that then, once it's together, you have an option of either going soft cover or hardcover. So you can, if you use the text on the copyright page, you make sure that you list both ISBNs, HBK for hardback and PB for perfect bound on the copyright page. Then you have the option. We can just bind 500 hardcover books and then bind 1,000 softcover books. Just move it to a different piece of equipment. In the case of hardcover books, you're talking an extra 5 days. But typical lead times are 10 days for softcover, 15 days for hardcover. You can have a complete run of books within 15 working days from the date of approval, and you're ready to go. And I have one author here in Boston right now who did exactly that. And for the shows that he's doing around town, he's taking the softcovers with him. For when he goes to certain venues where there are professional people there, he's taking both. And in many cases, he's selling the hardcover book because people are going to take it. They buy a couple of them and they're going to give them away as gifts because it's a good it's a good value. So I think that if you're in the kind of market that you would like to use both and see what happens, I think it's an economical way to do it.
I actually love hard books. When I have a book I love, I really do want the hardcover on it, and there is more of a permanence when you do receive them. Let me ask you this though: are all these books having dust jackets on it, or are they having the cover imprinted just on?
They're all dust jackets. The permanent dust jacket, a linen cover, gold on the spine, matching end sheets. If it's a natural stock, they'll have a natural end sheet. It's white, they'll have a white end sheet. But we print for the largest publishers in the world, and so you're getting a book that is equal or better quality than what you would get from some of the largest publishers. So you're going to get a round back book versus a flat back book. Flat back books tend not to feel as well. Round backs are kind of a better feel, a classy feel. And again, it comes down to we're building quality into the product. So when you pick it up, you don't go, oh, geez, this isn't very nice. You pick it up, as you said, it's sensuous, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, it could be orgasmic. Listen, there are just really differences of how books, and I've written a couple of columns lately that if I have one addiction, it's the books, and I love books, and I never thought I would be trashing books. I had a new client who came in and laid out his books, and I just looked at him and I said, these are things that he published a couple of years ago, and with a collective of them. And I just said, your covers look like crap. And the interior, what were you thinking? So he's kind of startled, but Tom, I'm blunt. And and then going over that. And we are now taking over, and we're going to redo the books. He's got 5 more books coming along, and working with the designer and doing a full-blown rebranding. So number one, they're synergistic. They carry the quality and integrity. I mean, here's this guy who is charging a huge amount of money for these intensive he does, and you put out garbage. It's not a good thing. To me, it's not a good thing.
No. And I think, too, what's important with the binding that we use and others as well, this PUR, it gives a very flexible binding. So, if you take a look at some of the thicker books, or if you take a look at a heavy-duty 8.5 by 11, and you've done this because I know you've done it, you take the book, you put it down on the table, and then you kind of flatten it out to use it, and then all of a sudden you look down and the page is falling out.
Yeah, you broke the binding. You
broke
break the spine.
And
yep.
It was a hot melt glue binding. And so, when I show people, and we've had some of our customers, one of the technologies that's very old, it's been around for a long time, is smyce sewing. And that's where you sew the signatures together. Mm-hmm. And we had a customer that, he was a potential customer at the time, it said, all of our books are sewn. And I, as you well know, I can be blunt too. And I said, well, I think sewing's a waste of money. And because, you're throwing a couple of bucks into sewing something that just doesn't make any sense. So we took one of his books and we PUR bound it. And he came in and I said, start ripping pages out. Well, guess what? The paper ripped before he could rip a page out. It was such a strong bind.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that's
and he totally said, okay, that's it. And so we PUR'd all the books, every title after that, and they saved a ton of dough.
So are you making on your quotes when we put in for bids? Are they standard with the PUR?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we're gonna take another quick break here in another minute, but I have a question because I know you say that. I've heard you say this a lot of times, and if we can just touch on it in the minute we have before we go to this final break here, is you always tell authors, I've heard you say at these conferences when I've been at the same one you've been at, that make sure they get copies of all their files from their designers. So can you just brush on that a bit?
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing, along with the economy and people being in and out of business, a lot of customers come back to us after 3 or 4 years, and they come back and they say, "Have you got our files?" And we go, "We do," and they say, "Well, can I have them?" Well, they're PDFs, and they're not the native files, and so there's nothing you can really do with PDFs. I mean, you can do some things, but get your files.
All right. So we'll come back and start on that and how you ask them, because a lot of people don't know what native files are. This is AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207. Or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Okay, in our last segment, we've got Tom Campbell. He's the Vice President of Sales and Publishing with King Printing, based out of Massachusetts, and we're one of our proud sponsors of AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. And we're just talking printing, which is, and a lot of you may not be aware, but this is the hot time. This is the time you reach out. Do you need to get a reprint? Are you getting a bid? Because January and February are typically good times to reach out to get bids. Is that correct? Is that still correct, or am I just talking in the air here, Tom?
Well, I mean, January and February are good times to print. March and April are good times to print. A lot of printers get tied up with some seasonality, and that has to do with more with higher education demands. So, but everybody, and that's one of the reasons that we've worked so long with a lot of the independents, is that, there's no seasonality to the business. I have people we're dealing with on a daily basis that, have 5 or 10 titles that, they want to get printed. And, some of them, just come in off the street, and some of them come from all over the world. And, one of the things that occurs today is that, a lot of people that are located in Europe or whatever have book sales in the U.S., and now they're finding it's a lot easier to find a printer in the U.S. to print their books and then ship them into, their distribution channel. So, the whole world is just getting smaller and smaller, and we've been blessed with so many wonderful people that we've worked with over the years. We were talking about it the other day. We were thinking maybe, we're probably up to 25,000, 30,000 titles that we've printed.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
And, there are some books that are, people printed 100 books and then they just went away. And, but there's still 100 books that they did, and they have an ISBN, and it's got their name on them. And, going back to your point, I did something not long ago where somebody was talking about marketing and selling books. And I said, well, the person asked me a question on the radio. It was actually TV. He said, when do you think you're going to see the success of your hard work? And I made the comment, well, it could happen after you're gone. And, for that purpose, as you well know, it's, a book could be part of an estate. And now all of a sudden, for some reason, it catches on, like the girl with the dragon tattoo. where are the files, where's the information, who's got what, and you want to make sure, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that when you have a book laid out and a design put together, as long as you've paid for everything, make sure that you get a copy of the native files for what that was done in, because you can always go backwards. The bad news, some of the programs are not backwards compatible, but if you've got the native files, then you get something, because the only other choice that you have is to go ahead, and if you have a copy of the book, is to scan it. But as you well know, bringing a book back to life, scanning, you're going to lose 5%. And if there's color in it, it gets a little interesting, particularly, and halftones as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've told our authors that not only do you get the PDF, which they give you, I tell them, ask their designer what would be the cost factor to convert the PDF to Word, so you get back a Word document that you can work on to repurpose, to change, to modify, to do revisions on, even in the future, and a lot of them will charge nominal dollars for that if it's all at the time that this is happening and they know it's coming. And let me tell you, once you go into your layout design, you think you're done, you think you're so done. By the time you're working back and forth with the designer, there are so many different changes and variations. And I know I'm sitting with 2 books right now on my desk that we're finishing up by tomorrow, which they've come back from their what we call the cold eye edit. And there are, one's fairly clean, but the other one has at least every 3rd page, there's some little tweak on it. There's just some little, maybe from the apostrophe 3 being backwards, a period missing, maybe a couple of words have been substituted in because they're too repetitive. You just never know, because they pop out differently in this final layout read when it's actually officially laid out. You want to be able to come back in and manipulate those, the capability at some point. So not only ask for the native files, ask what it would cost to do a conversion from the PDF, so you have it back in a Word document that you can save and stay. And the other thing is, what Tom is just so right on when he says this, that you want the native files, and what you could just simply say to your designer, what happens if you get hit by the bus? Is your teenager going to know what file to send to my new designer? Probably not. Right. Or your spouse. So, it's just business. It's just business. Treat your publishing as a business. Tom, I have to ask you about color. Color is changing a lot. Yep. In the field, and certainly in the digitized age. Just the color differences from 3 years ago have changed to today. So what's new here? What should we what should we know?
What you should know is that that color is going to continue to evolve and change. When you look at color, true color, still in a 4-color process. Your best color is always going to come offset, and that is true color. The problem with offset is it's expensive, and so you're talking about plates, you're talking about press time. Some of the most beautiful color books, as you well know, come out of Shanghai, and but you're going to have to make it reasonable. You're going to have to print 5,000 or 10,000 books, which both you and I know is kind of scary and probably not a good idea. So if you take a look at the next step down in color is toner-based color, and toner-based color comes off of some various machines. Again, it's basically a fuser type machine. It's where the ink, or let's just call it oil, just sits on top of the paper, and that's the equipment, the iGens, the Next presses, and then you step down, and then now you're into inkjet, and inkjet is even different. It's a pigment-based ink. So what I generally find is people that really are hung up on color, you give them a price on what it's going to cost offset, and they usually faint.
It's huge. As someone who has done that, it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think that, again, this comes back to printers. You need to the printer needs to assess, and you and I actually did a project on this. The printer needs to really assess what the author's looking for, what the author is really looking for. And we did a book for a young lady that you and I both know, and we looked at it both from an inkjet standpoint and we looked at it from a toner-based standpoint. And based on her concept of what she really wanted, we had to take her and move her out of the more cost-effective inkjet up to a toner-based solution, which she was happy with. It cost her more money, but she was happy with the end result, which is all that matters. But the flip side is the end user or the end customer is not going to really know the difference between those. And so, again, it comes down to the author and what they're trying to accomplish. And sometimes the authors are going to pay more to run a toner base or even an offset. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is they're not going to have a cost-effective, price-right product. And as I say to many of the authors that come in, is the end user really going to appreciate the effort and the cost that you put into doing this? And the answer is probably not, because it comes down to content. So, many of the children's books today, we're running all inkjet, as you well know. And many of the larger publishers have all gone to inkjet because they're taking a look at the cost-benefit of running shorter runs and not having inventory. And, the color is adequate for the utility of the product. So, again, inkjet is going to continue to evolve, but more and more companies are going to be, you're going to be looking at toner and inkjet solutions, and the offset solutions are really going to be held for the really big runs, because that'll still be cost competitive.
Okay, so we're literally at the end of our time. I can't believe an hour is gone so quickly. So to get a hold of Tom Campbell, you could go to their website, kingprinting.com, or just call the office and ask for Tom. He's an early bird, which means he's there, between 8 and 9 East Coast time? Is that right, Tom? Okay, so it's 978-458-2345. That's 978-458-2345. And Tom will be at the AuthorU Extravaganza in September. And this is the time you get to meet face-to-face and find out what a printer can do for you. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll have you back.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Great. Everyone have a good week. Keep writing, keep publishing. This is AuthorU, your guide to publishing, and I'm Judith Briles, your book shepherd.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each